We have started, and when the chair gets here, the chair gets here. So I guess it turns to the vice chair. All right, we'll make it a call to order then. Emergency evacuation instructions out that door and then outside to your left.
We all gotten a chance to check the minutes from last meeting.
I should say you will notice that there are two sets, a version 2 and a version 3. Version 2, I only got about halfway through. There's a timestamp on page 3 where I had stopped, and that's the one that I sent out. Version 3 is the complete polished version. So any changes you had on version 2, I may have corrected in version 3.
So we didn't send version 3 that's here tonight.
Correct.
So since we have not had a chance to review the minutes, I would motion that we table approval of the minutes until the next meeting.
I would approve that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Old business for discussion. We would be talking about Lake Tiogue, but that's mainly Jerry. Obviously I haven't heard anything about that. Have you heard anything?
I have not. We are setting up with the University of Rhode Island for the spring season. They're all in place. I don't know if Middle Dam is testing or not. Tiogue and Upper Dam are testing, and I think Johnson's Pond tests as well. So they go through the watershed watch at the University of Rhode Island.
Okay.
And they test for most of the big chemicals, especially nitrogen, phosphorus. Phosphorus is the biggest problem with lakes because of aquatic invasive species. But they also test for bacteria and algae, chlorophyll, and they will test for cyanobacteria if that's the case as well.
Okay.
For grant applications, I believe last time we had discussed talking with, so bad names.
Maria?
Yes. Tom, were you part of that meeting?
I was not.
It was also
I think I was in France.
right. That might have been a Jerry thing. Again,
We did from a grant perspective. So we do have a pretty limited list of grants available to the lakes, at least. So I don't know, from a grants opportunities perspective, I don't know if we have defined whether or not that's grants for the town through the Conservation
Right.
Commission versus grants for the lakes.
which I think was what the discussion with Maria was supposed to be about.
Okay, all right.
Recreational activities, obviously Lake Tiogue, that is Mr. Gatemaster's territory.
Have they moved any further on the location of the boat launch and beach at Johnson's Pond?
Not to my knowledge.
I only saw that one meeting that I went to before I left on vacation, and it was that they had signed on the consultant to continue investigating where that was gonna be. But I don't think they made any decisions as to where it is.
Is there a list of public access points where that could happen?
The one that I think they're entertaining is near the Greenway. where the Greenway intersects.
It's behind town hall, right?
Yeah, it goes behind
Right.
town hall and ends up
Wondering.
crossing, right parallel with 117 on an old trestle. And I think that area down underneath the trestle was the area that they were
Oh,
looking at.
okay.
I should be able to.
I know there's very limited town access to it, so.
I don't think that, yeah, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
any. There's a boat launch ramp at the campground that you can pay for.
Yeah,
And then I think there's another boat launch ramp on Flat River Road, but it's probably 60 years old. It's concrete and broken, but you can use it. But other than that, and there's no swimming areas.
oh, on Old Flat River, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no swimming areas that are public.
There's one location on north of Platte that has. The town for a very, very limited time had. Aspirations of putting up the police boat or the fire boat there, I'm not sure which boat, but. Just before where north of Platte used to be.
Okay.
Right on the right, it's kind of when you go over Isle of Capri, coming
Hmm.
from town, away from town, it's in that little cove right there. But it doesn't lend itself, there's no, not much more parking than street parking really, but I know that there's a pretty good access there, but it's getting grown in. That would maybe be a potential hurdle, but.
All right.
JS is not loading, so I can't show you.
And then the update, which would be good, would be Jerry would have an update on Briar Point, because that's the big kind of flashpoint in the town as far as use goes, parking, late night traffic, things like that. So
Yeah,
that's been kind of a flashpoint. I had heard, I think it was through Maria that oh no, it was through Denise at Parks and Rec, that they put out a bid to have somebody manage the beach of the summer, and nobody took the bid.
Hmm.
So a year ago, they put the bid out and nobody could apply, and then this year they put it out early and nobody applied as well. So that would be whether or not they're going to fees, manage the concession stand, handle the canoes and kayaks like that. Well, so it's a problem. I'm the vice president of the Upper Dam Pond Conservation Association. Point. And we would be, it used to be really bad there.
And no progress then on the town's moves over and by Johnson's Bond, no update on like any of those public areas.
Not to my knowledge, no.
I
High school.
oh,
Sewer.
Before the hook up to West Warwick took place. So they are in the stage for applications for stormwater control on Upper Pond for this year. One is the project that I presented a few months ago that we won the award, the SNEP award, to do stormwater control measures on Pondview Drive as a test, which is low cost, highly effective in removing both the sand or silt and the phosphorus from the water before it goes back into the lake. So they are committed to that for this summer. They also have money left over from the Green Grant in 2017 that they did not use all of it. They got an extension. And they are going to put in a storm scepter behind Regent Electric on Jervis Street. So when you go up Jervis Street off of 116, Regent Electric is on the right-hand side on the corner of Breezy Lake Drive. And they're going to put a storm scepter system which collects the water and spins the silt out of the water before it goes into the lake. And then what Upper Dam Pond is going to do is we received a grant from Senator Ratakis's office. And we are going to put in what they call phosphorus stocks at the entrance where the water comes into the lake to pull the phosphorus out of that water before it goes into the lake. So those are the two items that they're committed to. They did not want to change the design of the storm scepter to something more efficient like we're using on Pondview Drive because those plans were already approved. So rather than go back and reset the whole rest of the project, they're going to put that storm scepter in, which is like a giant septic tank kind of with a spin around it. So. But the town is committed to working to clear those traps on all the storm scepters and the storm drains that we put in on a regular basis. They have a back truck and they go and they actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Next up for discussion was forest management. This has been on our minutes for quite a while. I think actually now would be a good time then to introduce you.
Sure. I don't know exactly what what we need to talk about it.
Right,
I'm
so-
interested in it for sure.
Yeah, so in the municipal vulnerability plan, there is a call for a forest management plan kind of townwide.
Okay.
The Conscom, while you know they have a lot of interest in it, the expertise is not quite there, especially for something townwide.
Okay.
We do the land trust has a couple of forest management plans for particular properties.
Yes. Okay.
But one thing that you had brought up is kind of there are an increasing number of brush fires. And so, you know, we're trying to think about that and how to, you know, how does the Conscom have an impact?
Sure.
And we are open to ideas.
I will explain my role as the tree warden.
Yeah.
First, to kind of help everybody understand where that is. So tree warden is a volunteer position for the town. You know, and I'm basically brought in on resident concerns or complaints about tree problems. So if you're familiar with the GIS program, Kevin or somebody in DPW is very quick to identify a tree when when a resident calls and says, oh, yes, that's on our land or it's not on our land. At that point, when it is on our land and it's if it's a clear problem where a tree is very dead and poses a hazard, Kevin and I basically come to an understanding that he doesn't need me to go out there and confirm that in July, the tree definitely doesn't have any leaves, right?
Mm.
If the tree is dead, it's a hazard, we obviously need to act on it. Generally, I'm brought in on situations where it's questionable, right? What percent is dead, or is this tree is fully leaf, but there's rot at the base. So anytime there's a situation with some sort of nuance to it, I'm brought in to help support, basically the findings that the DPW is being asked on. And generally it's fairly clear cut, for the most part. Certainly had a fair amount of requests over the years of, how do I get my neighbor to cut down the tree that's blocking my pool or that sort of thing. And, those are questions that I'm not obligated, I don't think, in any way to answer, but I do offer my, best advice to the residents of the town of Coventry. But for the most part, I'm very, kind of black and white as far as how I approach, is the tree a hazard? If it's something, sometimes we do need to deal in a vacuum and think about this one situation, but other times it requires some understanding of our budget restraints and ability to act on, every hazard tree in the town of Coventry. We don't have a very robust, budget to deal with hazard trees. Sometimes the money is there, and other times we are understanding that there's other priorities in the town. And not to say that a hazard tree is not more of a priority than anything else, safety related, but as far as what we're up against budget wise, we do try to appease everybody in the best way possible. So that's really the extent of what I've been asked to do. There's a permitting process in the town. Last I knew, it was an $8 permit. I get 50%. Town gets 50%. I've never received a payment for it. I don't even know if I've ever had an application for a permit to work on the town tree, or whether it's removal or pruning. People are supposed to pull it. The utility people are supposed to pull permits in order to work in town. My predecessor and the previous DPW director felt strongly in certain times that the permitting process was the way to do it. We found that the utilities may or may not have skipped over doing some of the prescribed trimming in our town because of the permitting process was a little bit bulky. So when I became the tree warden, I never pushed the issue of trying to require the utilities to pay that permit, because I think we all want power in the town. If they're willing to do it for free, I think we should leverage that. And there's been some other hazard tree mitigation programs that whether it's Rhode Island Energy or National Grid has put forth, and they've come through and taken out tens and thousands of dollars worth of trees to maintain their power source at no cost to the town. So I think that's more important than trying to get the permit price. So I think, as far as what I've been asked to do and what I'm capable of doing, I was really happy to get the invite today to learn what you folks are doing, and learn more about how I could help. So I think that process, I do have a forestry background. I understand, urban forestry, certainly, and I know, as far as some of the properties that the land trust is tasked with managing, that's more of a rural forestry management approach, but I think we're not that big of a town where, it's not reaching some sort of suburban slash urban area. So it's I think it's an exciting prospect to be able to kind of beef up our approach to that.
Mhm.
I'm sensitive. I live in Western Coventry. I'm sensitive to the fire issue.
Mhm.
Every day when I drive down the road, there's trees and debris everywhere, and I think that's part of the healthy forest. But also, yes, there's sometimes when it hasn't rained in 2 or 3 months that you get a little concerned about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know what options are out there for us to even kind of address any sort of situation like that.
Mhm.
How would other towns that have
My window's open.
a, maybe a higher probability of wildfires, how do they deal with that? Do they go in and clear the brush? Do they do controlled burns, or how do they typically handle it?
I think the best example that we could look at is the situation 3 or 4 years ago in Exeter, where there was a big fire, 600+ acres. Just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and it required resources from, a dozen or so towns to get it. Exeter is a town that has, big river, it's got Arcadia, so it's got managed areas that, I don't believe that either one of those areas were involved in this fire, but it was interesting to see that, one of our most rural towns, was became something of a headline where you're like, oh, that only happens out west or certain areas where there's tens of thousands of acres, but no, there were houses dotted all around that. So I don't think we deal with it on an annual basis where it's become a priority. In the very acute situation was the gypsy moth, caterpillar infestation of 2017, 2018. It created a lot of dead trees throughout many areas of West Greenwich, Coventry, Richmond. So I know Richmond and West Greenwich were very aggressive on trying to manage hazardous trees and those big tracts of land that had a lot of dead trees, but it was all basically stuff. It wasn't, I'm pretty sure, I think they were able to secure some money periodically through, I don't think it was a special grant, but I feel like there was a provision in maybe attached with some COVID relief money that, was able to
Get dispersed.
use it, yes, at their discretion and not, and they allocated it towards that, they were very aggressive, and town of Coventry, I think, wasn't as hit as bad as some of the other areas, so, no, but I'm sure if you live in, maybe not in your neighborhood, wasn't hit quite as bad. Hope Furnace, if you live in Hope Furnace, that area was very, it's still apparent today when you drive down some of those areas of Hope Furnace where there's just left and right dead trees everywhere, Is that a problem? Certainly could be, if the conditions are right, and I think that, yeah, how we approach that, I think that has to work with the Rhode Island Forestry Department to see if there's some sort of woodland management grants that would be available to homeowners, because a lot of the land in those areas are not town land necessarily.
So the reason I asked that is the new business that I had put on the agenda is and I said in the beginning, I think that this commission has struggled a little bit to find its feet. And I firmly believe that everybody here wants to find their feet. We want to be an integral part of the town. We
Mhm.
want to be able to influence the way the town is managed. We would even accept the advisory path until we became more credible, if that's the
Sure.
case. But one of the things that I'm proposing is figuring out how to create projects that we could manage on behalf of or with the town. And with the lake associations, because we feel that one of the biggest influence areas that we could change would be the lake assets in the town. And there's 4 big lakes here that all have associations. So that could be a project, if you will, that the Conservation Commission could get involved with. So another one that I was thinking about was, what is your feeling, and have you done any work on tree management and proximity to lakes where the DEM would get involved? So the lake is town-owned,
Mhm.
but the DEM has restrictions
Yes.
on what needs to be done around that lake.
Right.
Even though there are dead trees, there are probably provisions that the DEM has that says that you can't even cut that tree.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your experience or thoughts around how the Conservation Commission could work with a combination of the town and the DEM to get some of that stuff removed? I mean, is there a permit process with the DEM?
Yes.
Do they just say, no way, don't touch
No,
it within 50 feet, or?
So there's DEM, there's CRMC, which is, Miles, you might be able to
Yeah.
speak more.
They're more coastal. That's, what is it, 100 feet of the,
Yeah, there's 100, there's 200, so there are restrictions. Yes, I think there's, my experience, I mean, I had my own business in town. I now work for a large landscape contractor. And it's never been anything different, where if you go ahead and ask for forgiveness, you will be punished. You know, if you go in and ask for permission, it seems to be the fear is that it's a very lengthy and difficult process to get a tree cut down, you know, because you want to see your pond or whatever, your waterfront better. I don't disagree with that, but sometimes there are situations. So yes, can you work with the state? Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we're coming to them as a Conservation Commission, I think they would be delighted to understand, you know, what challenges we, you know, somebody would, I think would be helpful. I don't think they would be more helpful than offering information, but you know, I think the help that in general in the town seems to be that we just don't have enough resources to devote to something, you know, that we're talking about forest management that's not getting done with volunteers and, you know,
No,
volunteer
we need
Boy Scout groups
contractors
or
to
whatever
do
it
it,
is, right? We need heavy lifting. Even an Arbor Day, you know, Earth Day celebration isn't gonna get done what we would require in the town. Town's fairly, you know, square footage or square miles, it's a fairly large town, so.
But I do see your point is that if the homeowner is going to the DEM as opposed to the Conservation Commission that's connected with the town going to DEM,
Yes,
the Conservation Commission with that town backing certainly would have more clout, if you will, or more influence in being able to do things than one particular homeowner would do.
yeah, and I
Because they
think,
just complain, right? And they don't know how to get things done or where to go to get things
Right.
done. But if there was some kind of a service within the Conservation Commission that said, hey, you know, we can help you manage that process. It could be one of our projects, you know, tree management.
right,
And then we would have a process in place that says, you know, if it's this kind of tree, we call this person or we do these things and, you know, we kind of help them, which creates credibility for our, you know, our group here. Because we're managing something.
I also think the Conservation Commission's agenda would be different than a singular homeowner, right? Like
Yes,
somebody that
yeah.
is bothered by a tree that is totally healthy, blocking their beautiful, you know, very well taxed property is much different than the Conservation Commission that's worried about invasive species and, you know, hazard trees or, you know,
Well, hazard
fire.
trees on a beach that the town
Right.
manages, right? And you can see this dead tree up there is, what they
Right.
call it, a widowmaker.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
So-
you know, those are, I don't even know that the clout matters in that situation, like,
Okay.
I think the issues that you're bringing and the issues that a singular homeowner, I think, are there situations where a homeowner has a dead, half dead, you know, hazardous tree and it's blocking their view? That's probably happened more often than not. We're not concerned, or I'm not, shouldn't include myself with your commission, but you are not necessarily concerned about the view, right? Like you don't
Right,
care that there's a
right.
nice, beautiful tree blocking the pond. You're worried about all the other issues that, you know, public safety and the health of the pond itself, or the forest. So I think in that respect, I think you do have a lot more credibility and you know, ability to work within their guidelines, you know, and then to reach out and say, yes, you know, oh, and by the way, maybe there's some grant money or something that, you know, you weren't aware of. But yeah, me as a resident calling up saying, I got this dead tree, and you get there and you're like, does
Call forward tree.
I don't know, it looks like it's got a lot of leaves on it, like, I don't know how to say that it's not
Yeah.
dead, but it doesn't look dead to me, but. Yeah, I think if the, I don't know if. I'm not aware of what programs are out there, but I do know that there are a lot of resources that generally go unadvertised and untapped, you know, so. We have, it's a fairly strong organization in the state as, different tree wardens. It's the Rhode Island Urban Tree, I don't know the official title, but different towns, the tree warden is a paid town position. Other towns, it's a stipend. So everybody has a different, way of kind of interacting with the town, but for the most part, everybody is on the same page as far as, you know, understanding what utilities are doing to our trees, and what our responsibilities are as tree wardens, so that part of it is, you know, it's been developing. And I feel like it's trending in the right direction, so I think there's some traction to kind of jump on board with that.
Okay.
There's two people involved with that that have been instrumental in securing a lot of grant monies for different tree inventories or, you know, different towns and that sort of thing, so they're I think the money is out there. I think we just need to understand what's available to us, what it takes to get it, and position ourselves to be there, you know, with our hand out, but
Yeah.
just like everybody else, so.
Do you folks have any questions?
I had a couple comments. One thing that I wanted to mention, the original reason why, especially fire safety was added to this is as much as we're talking about like budgetary concerns. So like, obviously, we're not gonna have a forest management team on payroll.
Right.
24/7 here. At the same time, also is like our fire department is similarly not extensively
Robust.
funded, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially to the point in recent years that I think I originally added that because of things that happened, for example, in Exeter and whatnot. The idea that if something happened here, even if it's not necessarily, you know, the most likely to happen. But if something happened in Coventry, that it would be devastating, potentially, especially with our current fire department. And I think you brought up some interesting points about that a lot of the, especially out in the more western part of Coventry, is a lot of it is homeowner owned property, like it's private land, it's not state managed, as much as we could manage state forest, it's only X percentage of Coventry.
Yes,
Um,
which is small.
right,
Yes.
potentially, getting homeowners access to programs that would let them manage, whether that's dead trees, or that's trees affected by past infestations and whatnot, working potentially on a homeowner level, or at least streamlining something, just to at least get some management, because we're not gonna have a tree brigade here. That's
Right,
not reasonable.
No,
But at least getting, especially the forest management, getting something down that would be enforceable, would be practical, though, given both budget and land ownership.
mhm,
Yeah, it's a, once we find the programs that a landowner can use, then we have to tell the landowner, hey, here's
this is available.
this program, hopefully, here's how easy it is to apply. Here's the benefit of that program, et cetera, et cetera.
Just throwing out an idea, I mean, a great example is Walker Lane right behind us. There's homeowner association, I'm pretty sure. I think it's part of the layout of that, of some of these developments, even as you go up Reed Schoolhouse. It has common land, so maybe there's something, instead of targeting every single homeowner, maybe we're targeting somebody, a group that, pond associations and, HOAs and, bringing some sort of relief to them where they can kind of tap into this and see the benefit of it versus trying to contact, I don't know how many residents, different property owners are. But, instead of trying to tackle the whole problem, maybe it is just like a more pointed, pointed approach to try to tap into some groups that are more, receptive of the idea.
Mm.
People that are organized already have a system, I think of, my mother lives in Sherwood Valley, like they have a very, good homeowner association. They're
Mm.
working with the state to try to get septic systems. They have a pond there,
yeah.
all of those things are, they already have the infrastructure to discuss this,
Mhm.
if you're going out to ABC Road in wherever part of the town, it's, you're dealing with John, Jane, Joe, and, like hopefully they're home. They,
Yeah.
they understand how to use the internet,
Yeah.
to apply for any of this stuff, so it might be a little bit, if we're looking for somewhere to start, it might be to approach organized groups that are already established.
Even then, even if it's not like all of Coventry, that'd be I mean, I don't know the percentage of like what homes in Coventry are like HOA or under any kind of association, but I would wager that it's not an insignificant amount.
No, it's probably
Like,
not, you're right.
We do have quite a few of what are called, open space subdivisions.
Right.
So, and all of those have common land.
Mhm.
So,
those would be the places to target, and just get at least some management done.
Mhm.
And that alone, every bit of forest that's managed, reducing risk and
Mhm. Yeah, it might be just something that would build and gain some momentum on.
anybody have anything else to add?
I would like to investigate more of those programs.
Hmm.
Because, either the HOAs or the common groups or even the associations, right? So our association has 32 homes around the lake. You know, Johnson's Pond, there's hundreds of homes around the lake, so,
It's 800, right?
yeah, so.
I'm just gonna look up the name of the, I don't wanna misquote. So, you know, Lou Allard,
I think I've seen that name around.
yeah, and Nancy Stairs, they're the Cooperative Forestry Program for DEM. And that's under the Division of Forest Environment. They are, every time they are kind of in charge of all the tree wardens, and every time that we get together with them, they do urge people to reach out and, you know, tell us your problems, tell us what you're dealing with, and, you know, I'm not saying they have the solution, but they do have access to information. It's there for people like us, you know, for towns like us, so, especially like Coventry, East Providence, City of Providence, Warwick, Cranston, they all have very, you know, good budgets to do some of the forestry stuff. And if you've been in any town, I don't, I can't think of one in Rhode Island right this minute, but sometimes, you know, when you roll into a town, it says the Lions Club meets on Monday, right? You know, it's always, you know, welcome to this town, this is the meeting. Sometimes you'll see a sign that says we are in like a ISA city USA. Again, I don't know the exact name of the program, but basically you don't get that distinction unless you have a certain percentage of your citywide budget, townwide budget is allocated towards tree management. So if you see that along with the Lions and the Kiwanis Club and everything else, the ISA symbol is on that sign, that is, to me as an arborist, I understand that means this town has devoted, I think it's 10% of their resources to that program, to a program, in order to get that distinction. So it, I would venture a guess that we are below 1% probably of our town budget. I don't know what our town budget sits at right now, but 7 million.
107.
So, yeah, I'm confident saying that 1% of that is probably not what Kevin has in his budget to tackle any sort of forestry issues.
Yeah.
So,
This is great. Thanks for coming by.
yeah, I appreciate you inviting me, and I mean, I don't know how much of a you know, sitting here talking, it's very helpful. You know, I do have ideas or what, you know, that would probably come about with more conversations, but certainly however I can help, you know, be more than happy to understand what that really looks like and try to do that. So, you know, I'm definitely open to.
Yeah. If
figuring it
you
out.
do have any ideas, email them to me and I'll
Send it out. Okay.
send it out, yeah.
Great.
As we start thinking about, so how do we better connect with the town council?
Right.
Through projects or things that we can work on. One of the things that I had always envisioned is who's the subject matter advisor for that particular space, right?
Right.
Yourself, subject matter advisor, when we need something that has to do with trees, forestry, right,
Mhm.
management. So have that person on the list. Another person for aquatic invasive species. Well, who's that person? Katie DeGoosh, right? Yes, good. Subject matter advisor for that particular thing. Whatever else it is that we figure that we want to work on, having that subject matter advisor that we can reach out to only makes our expertise more robust.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we can't be the experts in everything here on the table. We're like experts of something, masters of nothing.
Yeah, no, and that's, you know, there is a committee, you know, you're pushing the agenda, like that is your job, right? That is the priority, so trying to lean on somebody else to bring their expertise into it, I think is what your expertise is, right? Pushing
Yes.
on that person.
Yes.
Good way to put it.
Very good.
So actually, good segue into, was there anything else we wanted to talk about working with the town council? Any?
I did have new business that I wanted to talk for a
Yes.
few minutes about, because what I'd like to do is present that to this group. And get enough buy-in to possibly get it in front of the town council as an agenda item, that we could push, because I think that we need to be in front of the town council and we're not. I also think that we need to figure out how to get better connected with the planning commission, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. So I met with the planning commission in December, and I told them who we were. We did have expertise. We would like to work with you in an advisory capacity, and we have not been reached out to once since we did that in December. And I just have a feeling that, and what struck me was your original conversation, the original thing that you said was that there are conservation commissions in some towns that are extremely robust, and they don't make moves without the conservation commission.
Because you can't.
Because you can't.
You can't.
Right, and here, they do not need the blessing of the conservation commission to do what they want to do. That's the big difference here in this town. I don't know if we can change that. This goes back a long time in this town, but I would certainly like to try. And we can't do it without the town council having their backing. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about anyway. So if you wanted to transition to new business, I
Yeah.
can do that.
We can begin discussing new business then.
All right. I actually wanted to go to a paragraph that was in the meeting minutes before I do that. So in version 3, on page 3, halfway down, I think everybody knows, so it starts with Mr. Pendergast, states the passing of resolution 2508. So everybody, we talked about that a couple of meetings ago, that the town will use ARPA money to pay for weed abatement in the 4 lakes that have associations in this town for 1 year. And the total is in and around 50 grand. And in my opinion, this town should put a budget in for 50 grand, where they should be helping the lakes with their weed problem that the town is primarily responsible for, because they're dumping stormwater into the lakes that's not being treated. So anyway, that was one of the things that that I was interested in talking to them about. So all 4 lake associations benefiting. It's apparent to the town council that their lake assets have been ignored for many years, and it is the associations that are keeping them afloat. I also stated that we may be able to build momentum and help the town council more be in touch with and work more closely with the associations. And there should be some connection between them on a regular basis. And this could be one of the Coventry Conservation Commission duties. So I'm a big proponent of striking while the iron's hot. And when the town council is passing a resolution like that, giving the lake associations $50,000 because they think that they are, not only do they need it, but that the lake associations are actually managing a town asset on their behalf. That, I think, is a powerful statement to reinforce.
Mhm.
So while the iron is hot, I thought I would float an idea past this group about how to build a program that we may be able to leverage. That's in color. And then so I'll walk through it, and I'm really open to seeking feedback at this point, and that that we might be able to use this as leverage to actually gain more momentum. So what I did was, I called this, call it whatever you want, the Lake Management Task Force. So the Lake Management Task Force is a triad that consists of the lake associations, which there are 4, Johnson's Pond, Middle Dam Pond, Tiogue Lake, and Upper Dam Pond. Not to say that there could not be more lake associations, which right now there are not, but there are lakes within the town of Coventry that could certainly utilize that process.
yeah.
And that's something that could be done with Save the Lake, but that's something a little different. The Coventry Conservation Commission and the town council working as one to save and develop lake assets. So on page 2, working together, the 3 teams working and meeting together as one, which is what our notes stated in version 3 of the last meeting that we had. So how do the lake associations, Conservation Commission, and the town council work together to save and develop town lake assets? Let me just stop there for a second. The town is not investing in new lake assets at all right now. They don't pour a dime in, although I will tell you that the DPW was down on the dam at Upper Dam Pond yesterday, cutting trees and pushing back brush off the dam cap because they were cited by RIDEM that the dam where the cap was replaced in 2018 was already in danger because there were roots and things filling through the cap and corrupting the integrity of the dam cap. So they actually went in there and fixed that. And they did that yesterday. But for the most part, without anybody waving their arms and saying, we've got a problem, they're not out there helping. They're not managing their assets. So, and I call it the LMTF. They must document and understand the short-term and long-term problems for effective lake management. And we have documented the short-term problems from a lake perspective. One of the biggest ones is aquatic invasive species. But the long-term problem is not aquatic invasive species. The long-term problem is managing stormwater. So when you manage stormwater effectively and you remove the phosphorus inside of the lake, the aquatic invasive species reduces itself or actually can go away. And that breaks the cycle that's in there today of the lake filling in, or what they call eutrophication, where a lake naturally fills in. So there's short-term and long-term problems that we have to be sure that we're identifying and working on. We need to develop, or that group, this working group, needs to develop goals and a player list to guide the efforts. So the player list, trees and forest management, aquatic invasive species, expert at DEM, goose management, dam management, muck management, whatever the expertise is between those 3 is what we should have a player list for, so that we can call upon them when we're working on any of these projects that we define. We have to align always with the Coventry Comprehensive Plan. So whatever we do should be supported by the Coventry Comprehensive Plan. We got to work outside. We have to work with outside influencers. So RIDEM, RIDOT, Save the Lakes, and other towns. I'll be very interested in having a better understanding from other towns as to how effective their conservation commission is and how they interact with the planning commission, the zoning commission, the sewer commission, the whatever, the roads and streets safety plan, right? Any of that stuff, and how do they interact and how effective are they in that process? And we must work to increase the number of and strengthen the town lake associations. So there are lakes within the town that are definitely assets. One of them that has a failing dam that's going into Johnson's Pond now that the town is going to have to fix. So strengthening the association where they would have been able to manage that process way before it became a problem.
Yeah.
Years before it. So anyway, so with that in mind, what I did was I said, okay, we've got 3 groups here that all interact in one way or another. And they also act with outside influencers. So lake associations, on the left, Conservation Commission, on the right, the Town Council. So the outside influencer on lake associations is the group called Save the Lakes. It's a nonprofit. They've got about 30 lake associations statewide that are all part of their group. And their main purpose is to educate associations on what resources are available to help them better manage their lakes. From a Conservation Commission, we need to be effectively working with the Planning Commission, which we're not doing today. So I put that as our outside influence from a Conservation Commission. And then the Town Council, especially their directors, because they're already working with them, working with RIDEM and RIDOT. So there are interactions or focus points between each one. So number 1 is lake associations and the Conservation Commission. So best for conservation, what are the types of projects that these 2 groups would work on together? Lake issues, whatever that is, a very broad category, but we could get into a lot of detail about that. Whatever town issues there are, maybe managing Briar Point better, whatever that is. Future projects. And then who would be the players? This commission, working with the association presidents. Then from a number 2 perspective, so how do the lake associations interact with the Town Council? What is best for Coventry? So types of projects, stormwater, funding, especially lake funding, resolutions, writing the resolutions to be sure that we're effectively promoting those things that we want done. And who are the players? The commission and the Town Council. Oh, sorry, that's number 3 in the top right-hand corner, my mistake. That's number 3. So how does the Conservation Commission and the Town Council work together? And then number 2 in the bottom left-hand corner is what's best for the lakes. So that's the Lake Association working with the Town Council. Those types of projects where the Town Council would be interested is recreation projects, permitting and maintenance. And we'd be working with the town manager, the Town Council, and the association presidents. So those are the types of projects for 1, 2, and 3, based on the intersection of those 3 groups and how they would work together. And then we, as a Conservation Commission, would be responsible for coordinating that activity and bringing that back to lake associations and the Town Council. Then working together, all 4 are all the players. So all working as one: Parks and Rec, Engineering, DPW, the council, the managers, the commission, and the association presidents. So what I tried to do was, what could we do as a commission to effectively drive our agenda forward? And my thinking is that it's in projects. So as opposed to, here's an agenda, we're talking about individual items. If we said we are going to work with the lake, so the Conservation Commission in number 1 interacts with lake associations. And one of the things we want to do is we want to manage geese better because they're a big pollutant. They're a pain in the neck. There are ways to do that. The DEM suggests you oil the eggs, or you use some special, I don't even know, it's some special product that they put out there that drives the geese away. Now, in fact, they drive the geese away, they just go to another lake. But if all 4 lakes are using the same methods, then at least they'll go to Richmond or Exeter, right? But the point is that whatever the project is, it falls into either 1, 2, or 3, and that becomes a project that we specifically can work on. And we could identify the person on the commission that would be primarily responsible or the leader of that. And then once a month when we come back, we're talking about these individual projects as opposed to a list of agenda items that just seem to stay on the agenda with no effect. So let me stop there and just get some feedback.
On, yeah, like a more project focused idea, absolutely. My thing is, what are we bringing to the town council hypothetically next meeting? Like, what are we going to say to them? Are we presenting this and saying, hey, this is how we want moving forward the town of Coventry to work? Or are we suggesting resolution change or?
I think we're suggesting a direction for the Conservation Commission. I think we're defining a purpose that we can wrap our arms around. And we need your help, town council, right? And one of the things we need your help with is cracking the code on how to get to the planning commission. Because that's where all the stormwater work is. It's all sitting with the planning commission. So all new developments, we've been talking about it for weeks on Tiogue, Arnold Road and all of that stuff that they're gonna put up there is gonna end up in Tiogue Lake. And what are they doing about removing the phosphorus and the total sediment before it gets to the lake? I think to answer your question and try to make it as short and sweet as possible is that what I would like to do is define a purpose for the Conservation Commission. And the purpose is, and because the iron is hot and they have support now for lake associations, that pulling these three together into a coordinated effort around projects would give us purpose and it would hold people to the fire on things that we need to get done.
Because my only reservation is the idea, like, I agree, like, we go there, we present that. My worry would be the pushback is, okay, go do that. Okay, well, planning commission isn't listening, so we'll go talk to planning commission, and they just say, well, we'll contact you when we want to advise your opinions, like they have in the past. How do we get that from, we're just talking to people on the town council to, I want to say the word power, but like the influence to actually get these projects moving? Or is that it?
Legislation.
Yeah,
Needs to
Or
be changed
for
in the
us,
charter.
resolution,
right.
right? So we're working with the town council member within the districts of where the project is to get a resolution that makes the town do that.
But is that resolution only attached to that project?
It might be,
Yeah.
yeah. I would think it might be. I mean, I look at the resolutions that were on the agenda last night, and they're very specific. That's we need to appropriate money for the grease traps. I mean, that was a resolution for grease traps. So that's pretty darn-
Everywhere, everybody that has. a
No,
free
that
trip.
was, no, that was for the high school.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
this was this
That,
right
yeah.
here. So we want to, and I'll keep using the word goose, we want to put a program in place townwide that allows the associations to oil the eggs of geese to reduce the population. And I know that I'm not even gonna get there as far as, it's an approved process by the DEM, so. And I'll just keep using it as an example. So, and we want to appropriate $5,000 so that we can buy the proper oil and distribute it to the association members. And we want to track how many eggs we do because it's a project and we report back. Save the Bay did this last year, and I think I talked about it. It was on my agenda. So they did a storm drain marking project. And 3 of the associations in town participated. Upper Dam Pond put 50 waterproof markers in front of every storm drain with special seal that held them down to the pavement. That should be there for years. And it says drains to lake. It's a nice big sign about that big around. It's colorful. It warns people not to dump stuff into that storm drain, because you'd be surprised the number of people that have no idea where the water goes once it goes into the storm drain. They don't know. But the point is, that was a project, right? It had a beginning, it had training, it had implementation, and then end. And at the end, we could say 50 markers in this area, 25 markers here, 200 markers there. And we can appropriate money for the markers through a resolution. And then we can report back at the end to say, this was a project by the Coventry Conservation Commission and it was successful. We did 250 markers in a 6-week period, right? But it's a project. And we can be effective with that. And just where I feel like we're spinning our wheels here, and I've had this conversation with Jerry. Jerry, I know would reiterate what I'm saying here is we were concerned of even re-upping our 3-year responsibility here at the commission, because if we weren't going to be doing anything, then why are we doing this every, once a month on a Wednesday? And I know it's not, I'm retired, so I have a little more time than other people have. But, if you could devote 5 hours a month to working on a project instead of 15 minutes looking at the notes before you come to the meeting, I think we'd be a much more effective and a much happier group here. So I think, again, to reiterate your point, because it's really important, your point that you're bringing up, is that what's the ask? We're going to go in front of the town council and, well, why are you here? And I think we're creating a purpose for the Coventry Conservation Commission. And we don't have that today. And we want to work with these 3 groups together on projects, and we want to report back to you. And we're going to ask for resolutions if it's in your district, right? So if I've got a problem in your district, I'm expecting you to write a resolution to get something passed. And now we're, as a Coventry Conservation Commission, putting pressure on one of the council members to get things done. I don't know. What do you think?
I totally agree. I agree. We need some sort of purpose and direction, so we're not just here once a month.
Yeah.
Doing nothing.
And we could start, so I always say, start small, think big, scale to the max, right? Let's pick 2 projects. Right, after we meet with the town council, and it's easy enough to get on the agenda. But I don't know if this is ready, and I put the concept out here for all of us to think a little bit more about. And what is the question, and what kinds of things could we do? And I could get much more specific about 2 or 3 projects within each one of 1, 2, and 3, and bring that up as concrete examples to the town council.
That, especially, well, yeah, concrete examples definitely, because they're gonna ask, well, what do you actually want to do?
Like what kind of projects and what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to be specific at the intersections. So what is specifically in number 3 that we're interacting with the town council on? We're looking for stormwater projects. And this is not the responsibility of the association to go find funding to do a stormwater project.
Right.
It's not the association's responsibility, yet the town is expecting the associations to do that, or just lay back and wait for their lake to fill up with weeds. One or the other.
My question would be, like, what's written in other towns as far as conservation? I don't know that the state of Rhode Island has that same kind of oversight for conservation as other states do. I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I think it kind of always, people always talk about DEM, oh, this is gonna be a DEM issue or a CRMC issue, this could be an issue. Whereas, towns in Massachusetts, there's a conservation commissioner on staff. In every town.
So
It's already there, they have to listen, like it's written into the charter that.
Right.
That's part of the
I
program,
mean, in Massachusetts, the development project that each project has to go through.
right,
Rhode Island does not have that.
so that's a.
So is it
Rhode
a
Island
Rhode Island
legislature.
law, or could that be we could do that in Coventry?
We could, but it would be helpful if it was already.
Yeah, so
Mandated
this
by
is
the-
a good example of Rhode Island. So I'm also the secretary on the board of directors for Save the Lakes. And we were instrumental in getting legislation passed last year for a lake management plan for the state of Rhode Island. Not only does every other state in New England have one, but theirs are all funded.
Right.
The state of Rhode Island passed one last year with no funding. So now, one of the goals that we have for Save the Lakes this year is to figure out how to get the senators to fund the darn thing. So that now we
A
can
little bit of
actually get money for it. But we are the last, to your point as well, Massachusetts, Maine. You cross the border in the summertime into New Hampshire and Maine, you see a big sign that says, if your boat has not been washed, turn around and go home.
Right.
Something like that we don't tolerate that here.
It's on the highway.
It's on the
Yes.
highway on the way in. Yeah.
It's not some obscure sign on the side of a town road.
Right,
It's
right.
Literally on.
And then in Rhode Island, and we're not gonna change, Rhode Island, but we could change our little corner of the world.
Hmm.
And at least if we're gonna meet here once a month on a Wednesday, we could have projects that have goals that are meaningful and show success. So that's what I would like to work toward.
So going immediate future planning, I think definitely want our president to discuss at least some of this. I'm sure.
I gave this to him last night.
Yeah,
so
I'm
he
like
at least-
1,000% sure.
He
Yeah,
at least has it, so.
yeah. I not so much about agreement, but just for posterity, and also to have him on the record on board for that way.
Mhm. Yeah, we should vote on it
Right.
to say that we're actually gonna do that, right? That would be the
Mhm.
thing that we would have to do is
Yeah.
vote, then
Well-
get on the calendar on there.
You would have, I don't think you would have to vote if you were going to support this in general. I think if you are going to take a particular action, then yes, you have to vote on that. I don't think, this as an idea, I think, and as a presentation.
So then we agree to it as
Yeah.
a commission,
Yeah,
and then we go ahead and present that to the town council.
I think, and you mentioned this, I think. The town council would, I imagine, would prefer. When were you thinking of presenting this to the town council?
When it's thoroughly baked by this commission and
Okay.
approved by this
Yeah.
commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at that. I think at that point, a vote is certainly warranted. I don't know if it is tonight.
Oh, no.
Not.
No, I brought this today to plant a seed.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do, is plant a seed tonight.
Yeah,
And then get everybody thinking, take this home, and then maybe sit down Saturday or Sunday over coffee for 15 minutes and take out a pencil and go, well, what about if we add another box, or if we did this or that?
Hmm.
And then just think about it a little bit. And then we get together, I mean, I hate to wait a month, but we've been waiting, so. You know, maybe as long as we're all together, we could do something on the phone, right?
That would constitute a meeting,
Would be a meeting.
which, I mean, there isn't anything saying you can't have additional meeting between now and June. What have you, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere. around
Yeah,
there.
I mean, you know, there is no rule stating you can only have one
Right,
per month.
right. We just, because of open meeting laws, we can't have the conversation and it not be
Right.
a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I think let's set a goal, that by the end of next meeting that's already been planned out. So the June, whatever, I don't know the second Wednesday state off the top of my head. That we have a, if you want to call it a draft or, of something ready that we can, at the end of next meeting, we can have a vote on, we're ready to, we want to present this to the town council.
Okay.
I think that's since we've already talked a lot about it, I think that's a reasonable-ish goal to have, by the end of next meeting, have something prepared for the town council.
So I'm hearing of the picture, which is this is the concept. And some concrete examples of projects within each one of those 3 squares. That we would like to work on.
Potentially even
Tree removal.
we have
Goose
examples
management.
from like other towns. If there are similar projects that we have heard of. Or could find, you know, do a little, find a little research. I'm sure there are other towns that have done at least some kind of project that we could point to and say, look at this worked out pretty well. We want to do stuff like Exeter. I don't know the rest of the town.
West Greenwich has a very, very good, you know, they've had a ton of success with obtaining, you know, private land and making it public and putting different projects into conservation land and you know, whether it be Tillinghast and Wickaboxet, you know, there's a lot of projects that have happened in the last 10 or 15 years that they've made some big strides. So it might, I don't know if anybody has any contacts in West Greenwich, but there might be worth reaching out to somebody there.
Definitely.
But, and there are no rules that say I can't call the chair of the West Greenwich Conservation Commission,
I don't know of any.
you know, as a. Yeah, I mean, okay, so I will. Take the action to reach out to 3 conservation commissions in the state of Rhode Island. In the western part of Rhode Island. Because they're more like us. So West Greenwich, you said?
West Greenwich, I would think that you know, they have had a lot of success at doing that.
Have you heard of any other ones?
Like us,
Well, not as dyslexic as we are.
no, but I'm
necessarily,
thinking the
But
towns that are the most obvious would be, you know,
Hopkinton, Richmond,
I mean, like East Greenwich or, you know, Little Compton, some of the Newport, some of those towns that are, that have a budget and have lakes and ocean that they're worried about, and they rely on for tax purposes. Hopkinton, I'm not really familiar when you go down further, but yes, I would
it
imagine
might be more like Coventry.
Western, yes.
More like
Hopkinton.
Coventry, but also not necessarily in a, we want to present that to
In
the
a good,
board.
yeah, here's,
As
so
a
what?
former Cherokee
what is the-
resident.
Yeah.
Yes, they don't have any
With the
money
gold,
either.
like the gold standard of conservation commissions. What would that look like?
I think yes, if you're willing to talk to West Greenwich, you might find some answers
Right.
that might lead you to some other opportunities. I'm wondering.
All right, so there actually could be a page here, well, you know, the discussion with 3 other conservation commissions, and here's some of the projects that they worked on, and here's what their, you know, success rates are, you know, challenges. Successes and challenges. Okay,
They could have a good, you know, you should start here on project X and then, you know, snowball.
yeah,
Give you a little roadmap.
how well
Yeah.
do they effectively interact with their town council?
Mhm.
You know, or with their planning commission, or with the DOT, and just as example questions to
Right.
them. Okay. So the goal would be to have something that is very close to presentation. And then
Right.
we could agree, make changes that we need to make to it, and then set a date with the town council. Maybe sometime July, if that's the case. And May, we have one more meeting in June. We come to a final. If we feel that we need one more meeting, we could call something in 2 weeks. At the end of June. and then get something in
Theoretically,
July.
yeah, I mean, by state law, I need 48 hours. So,
So,
I mean,
yeah, that's
yeah.
okay. Speaking of state laws, I'm just used to now working in the state, so I'm used to device regulation. If I wanted to bring, like, say, a laptop in next week, so that it'd be easier to like write stuff down and actually get it, like, make edits to a draft,
Oh, yeah,
that'd be good.
oh, yeah,
Like, I can't even plug in my phone to a state computer, like, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of level of that,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to double check. With that, is there any other comments or questions that anybody had? I think we have a plan, goal for end of next meeting. Hopefully, all four will be present, so that we can, you know. Not that we can't make decisions without 3, just, you know, especially without our president feels a little. No, but I'm sure he would, he agree with all of this, of course. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Are you on any town commissions?
No.
We're looking for somebody. It's an open spot. Think
No,
about